Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this new version of what we're planning to do with more of these conversational series, a little bit less formal than our previous stuff we were doing with FreeFuse sessions, which is still going on. But these are actually conversations with folks who are in the realms of startups and technology that we wanted to really highlight. And one of the folks I've had a great opportunity to chat with is Stephane. And basically, we have been talking about all of the capabilities of building out an ecosystem. And so, of course, I had a chance to reach out to him a little while ago about, possible ways that we could partner. And so, as part of that, we wanted to have a conversation around some of the challenges that startups and early stage organizations have with things like sales, marketing, top of funnel, and some of the solutions that his team is actually bringing out to the market. So without further ado, let me go ahead and pass the baton. So anything you'd like to share with the folks out there in the greater land of maybe YouTube, LinkedIn, or any of the other places that we share content with?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Mike, for having me today. It's a pleasure talking to you. I mean, we have a lot of uh, things in common when it comes to building ecosystems, and understanding of marketing is crucial for early stage startups. What we've seen over the past years is something that triggered the desire for us to build this platform, Dash API, that a lot of businesses, especially when it comes to tech industry, need to collect a lot of information. And we found out that you collect information for yourself, you collect information for your partners, and your partners are also collecting information for you. So the whole ecosystem needed a tool that actually works better than what we have right now in traditional CRMs. Um, the main idea behind this is those CRMs have been built over the past decades. So Salesforce is 25 years, HubSpot is more than 10 years. And their architecture is clearly not fitted into the world we are in, where we collect massive amount of information. I mean, what we are doing right now is going to trigger information for both of us. And that information must be captured somewhere and put into perspective with the other touch points that you're going to develop throughout the lifespan of your company.
And one of the things that I have really understood about building up ecosystems as well is there was this idea that platform businesses themselves were obviously just kind of like this central hub, which naturally they are, right? You're going to have integrations, you're going to have APIs, you're going to have two sides of marketplaces. Sometimes you're going to have entire groups of people hoping to meet each other, whether you're talking about like an Upwork or like a LinkedIn, where it's kind of like a free for all, or like Twitter, and it's kind of similar models. But what I found really interesting about the current discourse around ecosystems is the idea of sharing data in a more meaningful way, right? And I actually think that there are, prospectively going to be tools that maximize that, capability to share data. I think everybody's obviously read the propaganda book for ecosystem-led growth that the folks at Crossbeam have made. And, for if any of those folks see this, I mean it affectionately, but it is a propaganda book. But in any case, it is a really good book to share those concepts, and really be able to understand the idea that you can share data amongst your partners, right? Like and it makes sense if somebody let's say you're somebody who sells pool building, right? Your partner who sells pool equipment probably wants to know that one of those folks bought a pool, and you can kind of make that intro. So I think that there are things that are going to be around the idea of sharing data as a way for partners to strengthen their connection and strengthen their capabilities to earn together. And I think it's that dimension that adds the actual improved nuance to partnerships, that isn't just, hey, this is a referral partnership, let me just get whatever money I can from them, and like we can send them referrals. And that's just like really old school. Now if you align yourselves up with the actual business objectives, I think that that's really important. But what are you seeing right now? Do you see that people are actually aligning themselves more along the lines of data, or are they really doing more formalized things in terms of integrations as a way to partner with like other tools and make maybe some more really solid offerings for the marketplace?
Well, I think there is something interesting in what you're saying. And when you were speaking, I was kind of thinking at something we developed with one of our mentor, which is service as a software. I think we're transitioning from a world, and that's exactly what you were explaining regarding the referral and everything attached to these all business principles. where the solutions were actually the one that we're putting up front. Now we want to put up front the service, and the service is something you play as a team. You have to be a team player, and you cannot let your partner down. So it's very important to get that up and running. And as part of it, yes, sharing data is actually crucial, because you cannot be doing anything good if you don't understand what are the constraints your partners have when they come to see your customers. You can understand sometimes what your customers actually are looking for from your solution if you don't have the right feedback from your partners as well. So information is not just about selling, it's also about feedback, about getting product ideas, product evolution, and making sure the whole ecosystem benefit from what you're doing.
And it's so interesting that you mentioned that too, because one of the things that I think is interesting about what you said was, first, you kind of flipped the software as a service, but you said
Yeah.
service as a software, right? And I know
Yes.
that that was intentional because, and to some degree, that's what's so interesting about the nature of AI now, right? Because now you actually have people who have operationalized, work that would normally go to a service provider, right? And we're obviously not going to discuss the nuance of whether that's positive or negative, but for example, look at somebody who does copywriting, right? Like I've put together a framework for how to actually write some of my best copy I've ever written because I needed to take the notes and the insights of how I wanted to communicate from reading various books or looking at the way that folks have taught things on YouTube and things like that, and I've taken pieces of that. And then what I did was I took all of our own data, transcripts of our calls and how I communicate, like even through something like this. I told it to basically get the nuance and the structure and the way that I communicate, take in these principles, and then develop out how I would talk to folks, right? Because I've always had a problem translating the sort of all the stuff in here into like actual cogent stuff that makes sense, right? And normally that would happen with a copywriter, but to what you're saying, there are things that are now being adapted that were previously services that are moving to being developed as software. And I think that there's actually the subject matter expertise of folks to be able to provide that service. I almost feel like should lend them to want to create those software tools because I think that that's how you even are able to compete and survive if that is your business, right? And I've kind of aligned that idea with a bunch of folks, but I think that that's really the way to stay resilient, right? We were talking obviously more early stage, but I think a lot of folks are going to have some problems with sustainability, not just in the environmental sense, but like being able to still exist and be resilient, if they don't do these things where they operationalize or to some degree like turn their subject matter expertise into something that can be usable by other people, not just reported stuff like your academic papers. So do you kind of see like that's actually the shift of how things are going, or are we seeing kind of like the burgeoning issues that are coming up from that, and then will that be more prevalent in, let's say, like a year, 2 years, 5 years?
I think it's something that is just at the beginning right now. We talk to a lot of marketers in different organizations, all sizes. What we found out is that today, what they mostly do is they try to buy a software to fix a problem, which is great, but that software is not providing any service to them directly, in the sense that the service is not put up front. You first buy the software, and in many situations, you need to train for that software. You need to hire someone, especially when it comes to a CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce. You would definitely need to hire someone to configure it to your needs. And this is actually not a service from what we are seeing. The service would be something that you can go as a user and start using as soon as you turn it on. I mean, it's really what we have from the iPhone. I mean, the iPhone came to the market as a service in a sense that you don't have to read anything, any complex books about how the phone is working. You just pick it up, turn it on, and it's so intuitive that you already know how to use it. And it's very striking to me that a lot of B2B software are actually the opposite. You need training, you need to go deep into the documentation sometimes in order to do basic things. You also have a lot of complex menus that should not be there. And as you were saying, the AI game is actually changing the way we can create the interface. So I think that the biggest revolution we're going to have in the enterprise software world is all the UX is going to be redesigned. And that actually is accompanied by a shift in the workforce. So a lot of young people are now getting into into the market. And that is a radical shift because they were fed by those very simple apps, Instagram, TikTok, etc. They understand very quickly how it works, and they're going to be facing those very complex interfaces, and they're going to be like, why is that? And I remember myself being in their shoes when I started my career, because we were moving from mainframes that were, with those terminals in black and white, very cryptic code you had to type in, to get something done, to a Windows environment that was drag and drop, plug and play. Everything was so much simplified over the traditional Unix and Linux systems that were used by major companies. And that actually was also the revolution, because young engineers were actually looking forward to have those time savers in the workforce. And they were not like, oh, we're going to be crafting those very cryptic codes using Bash and C++ or Perl, those kind of things that all engineers were used to do. And they were like, oh, we can actually just click a button and everything is done in one. So, and I think it's going to the same. And this time, the revolution is led by the capacity AI is giving us to replace the interface by something which is more like a communication with the machine than we used to have. So we can actually be more flexible. We can be more global when it comes to what we want to do. And that doesn't require any knowledge about the underlying technology, which I think is a very positive point, because as of today, you still need a lot of understanding of what's going on underneath to be a good user of a Salesforce or HubSpot.
Sure. And I think that, as we look into how it is that folks are consuming technology, I think like the term someone had used a while back was consumerization of like B2B software. And like, yes, well, I think that's a very useful allegory blanket term. I don't think it completely captures what is actually happening. I think there's a certain shift of behavior. There's a certain like, and keep in mind, like millennials, Gen Z, you're talking about perennially online people, right? You can call it digital natives.
Very true. It's very true. But if you look at that, it's very true, because there is a software that actually does it very well. It's Gusto.
Yeah.
Gusto for benefits is amazing. You're a
Right.
startup. I don't know if you're using it, but that thing is just so simple to use when you're starting your business. You have, as a business owner, just to create a few things, you enter a few information like the tax IDs and stuff like this, and then you send an email to each employee you have on the payroll, and you're done.
Right.
And nothing is complex, or they take care of all the taxes. They take care of everything for you. They can also provide you with benefits, and the employees are just going to pick and choose what they want, and you just say how much you're going to cover. And that's a revolution, because suddenly when you're a small company, you don't have to hire someone to take care of your HR. You don't have to hire someone to take care of all the payroll complexity and the taxes and how you're going to implement healthcare, etc. All of that is done in one click of a button. And that should be the same for everything related to sales and marketing. This is a crucial part of the company. This is where you make money. This is where or you grow your business. And what they are using is pretty complicated, requires a lot of interconnections, requires a lot of tools in the stack. And that actually makes it kind of cumbersome for a lot of businesses. And they have to wait in some cases in order to get the solution, because they don't have the funding at the beginning. And the other reason then is that when they have the funding, they see the bill and they're just like, oh, do we really need to pay 12, 20K a year to that CRM company, plus the other solutions we have on top in order to make business? I mean, that's ridiculously insane in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that with one of the things, like talking about how like people are going to be optimizing around these things, whether it's like, helping to share partner data, or whether it's like actually changing the, paradigm of how you're actually designing the software to meet up with a whole new market of folk. That's why, to me, like having so many different generations in the workforce is such a fascinating thing, because like, you're right. Like most of the people who have gone through a process of, hey, I have a particular problem that I'm trying to solve, this is why I'm purchasing, right? And that's really what was the standard, right? But now, like, one, if you're talking about B2B sales, you're talking about a much more complex sales process. You're having people who they're like, sometimes there isn't even like a top down decision making process. Now there's like, hey, I'm going to invite XYZ person, right? Like they are going to be contributing, they're going to be influencing the conversation, they're going to be able to strike down a deal. And now you're going to have people across generations. You might have a Gen X person on a committee of folks to purchase something, as much as you're going to have somebody from Gen Z who's actually going to be your frontline person working on these sorts of things. And all of them are going to have a piece of the pie in terms of what's actually going to get implemented, right? So does it make sense to, I guess, quote unquote, consumerize? Sure, like absolutely. I think at the end of the day, it's really just about how easy are you making your stuff look, and are you making it look nice? Because people almost want the expectation of social media, right? And then they want the, at least any, like they've been trained now to say any communication needs to be social media-esque, right? That's why, like, if you look at the smoothness of something like a Discord, it's like Discord actually makes a lot of sense because it really carries over some of those principles. It has the flashy nature of like being a gaming, platform or gaming adjacent platform that makes it fun and exciting to use, right? And like, even for ourselves, we do our internal comms on Discord versus Slack, because, and quite frankly, I just really don't like the way that Slack kind of operates with the way you do replies and like having to, put that back into the space. I just kind of like haven't liked that before. But like, like for a lot of folks, like that is the main way that they communicate with other people. So to me, I feel like even the modicum of success for people to figure out is to say, okay, well, like, what are the expectations of the people in this marketplace, right? Like the expectation is that a lot of people are going to maybe say XYZ thing, right? And they're going to need XYZ thing, and they're expecting that, and you need to be matching that up with the things that you're providing out into the marketplace.
I think you're very true. And one thing I wanted to add is a lot of companies are neglecting the UX. So what I've seen is when you talk to people and when you're looking for a UX person to join your team, everybody is a UX person, but actually that's not true. Most of the UX people you talk to are actually UI. They know how to design something that is flashy. You look at it, you're like, wow, it's cool. But there is a problem behind that, which is now as a user, what is my experience? Or why do I have to click on 6 buttons? Great, that awesome buttons with animation and everything, but that doesn't make any sense. I should do just one click and I'm done. So the user experience is a different game, and there are very, very few people who actually can bring it to life in your product. And you need to be paying very attention to what users are doing on the solution, not just the partners, but also your own users, because that's key to their experience. And I think that the revolution is also going that direction. I mean, I don't understand why, if you look at Salesforce, Amazon, even Google Cloud, they have very poor UIs. If you look at those UIs, it's just buttons everywhere. As a former aerospace engineer, I would say it's just like Boeing, oh, we have room for a button, we just put the button here. Does it make sense? Who cares? We have room for the button, we just put it here. It's something that, people in the industry were kind of used to, and you were like, yeah, I'm a pilot, so I can figure out what the buttons are, and I will adapt to my environment. I think now in software, we are getting to the point where it's going to be the opposite. The software needs to adapt to its environment. And that shift is massively driven by consumer products. I mean, Netflix is so easy to use. You don't need to read anything. Facebook actually led the way on this respect. And there is no reason for enterprise products to be so complicated anymore. That's the starting point for us as well. And once you have that done, it's making things much easier when it comes to building the ecosystem, because you're not wondering how you're going to be sharing information or how you're going to be things. You just have to explain what you want to do. The machine will do it for you and share the relevant information with your partners. So certainly simplifying the UX and making it a real experience for the users is actually making it easier as well to build an ecosystem around your product, because people want to be part of this experience.
Absolutely. And, obviously we're, wrapping up here. So I really appreciate all the insights that you've shared, through the course of the conversation. But do you have a quick 1 minute share before we wrap up here about, anything going on your end?
On mine, I don't know. I think we are looking forward to be connecting with FreeFuse and put things together in one ecosystem.
Of course.
We are also looking, I mean, talking about ecosystem, we're looking at a different way of making the ecosystem. I think that The existing marketplaces have been built by developers, but it's very complicated for developers to maintain their code all over the place. So we decided that we wanted to be building something the other way around, where we maintain these connections with these different platforms. So our users will have a selected access to top of the top and best of the best solutions for every category. And we are going to be maintaining those connections. So we make sure that everything is working fine and that they have the solutions they need in order to do business. And that's, I think, is also important because when you go to a lot of these marketplaces, you will find a lot of software that is abandoned. And you're like, that's exactly what I need, but it doesn't work on my platform. And then you're kind of hunting where this software is actually working. And you find out another CRM and you're like, okay, it only works on Salesforce. It doesn't work on HubSpot. Even though they have an app on HubSpot, it's kind of broken. But the one on Salesforce is actually where they are putting all the effort and the maintenance. And it's very frustrating as a user. So we also want to remove that frustration by making sure you have the best experience and you can really build your ecosystem in a peaceful way, peace of mind way, actually, that is going to be very important for you because you need to focus on making money, not on is my software working. That should be something you take for granted.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
really the vision we have for Dash API as of today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you for coming on today. Thank you so much for the time. And for those folks who like this format, we are going to be doing more short kind of conversation series moving forward. So stay tuned and get into the next episode of the series moving forward. So just want to thank you for checking this out for the first time, and we'll see y'all next time.